Obviously you can build them yourself out of wood. You can go to like Tractor Supply and get those tartar fire rings like we have over there beside the barn. And then, what's up, Lazy Dog fam? I hope everybody out there is having a wonderful day. On today's video, we're going to talk a little bit more about our whole raised bed plan that we're going to be putting together here in the next month or so. Talking about all the details of that. I just ordered those last week, so I'm excited to tell you all what we're going to be doing here in this plot behind me. Once we go through all the details of that and I show you the layout and everything, then we're going to go to the greenhouse and stay with our seed starting schedule. Got a few more things we need to get started now that September is here. So let's start off talking about the raised bed plan. So if you've been following along, you know that we were planning on taking one of these 6 plots in this area we call the Dream Garden, one of these 30 by 35 plots, and putting all raised beds in that plot. So basically taking a 30 by 35 in-ground garden plot and then filling it full of raised beds. So why did we choose this plot? Well, I wanted to go with a more square plot. So some of those plots on the back half of the property aren't exactly square. So I wanted to pick one of these 6 here in the Dream Garden. 3 of these plots, these 3 up front here, are converted no-till plots, and I'm liking the experimentation with those. So I didn't want to sacrifice one of those up front there, which left me with these 3 kind of on the back row of the Dream Garden, and I just thought this one would be more accessible right here on the end, easier to get to, and so this is the one we picked. Now, as we've been talking about this over the last several weeks of videos, we've had some people ask why you want to do this raised bed thing. You got all this nice in-ground garden space, really nice established in-ground garden plots, and you're going to sacrifice one of those and put a bunch of raised beds in there? Well, yeah, that's kind of my plan. So we're fortunate to have 10 or 11 different plots, so we can sacrifice one of them. We're still going to keep all the rest of the in-ground plots for bigger grow outs, things like corn, watermelons, even big plantings of tomatoes, pumpkins, sweet potatoes, things that take up a lot of space are still going to go in the in-ground plots. But I've kind of always wanted to have one of these plots with raised beds in them so I can kind of compartmentalize things a little bit. So I don't always need to plant a whole 30-foot row or a whole 40-foot row of, say, carrots or spinach or lettuce or some things like that. It would actually work better for me if I just did a little planting here, wait a few weeks, and then plant a little bit more in this next spot. So having all these raised beds in this plot will allow me to do a little bit better succession planting, especially in the fall and winter months. Also, hopefully grow more of a variety and have things kind of side by side that we can compare. And of course, we've had a lot of people asking for it, and got to give the people what they want, right? So I think it's going to be very beneficial for our homestead, allowing us to try some different things, and it's also going to make some great content for you guys who want to, or who have been wanting to see more raised bed stuff on the channel. Now, to get this plot ready for adding all those raised beds, we got a little bit of work, but not a lot of work. So we still got this row of Valencia peanuts here on the end. We're gonna have to dig those. Hopefully there's some peanuts underneath those plants there, so we gotta get those peanuts out of the way. Now, our original plan with this plot before we decided to do the raised bed thing here was to let the chickens graze this plot twice, maybe till it one time, and then plant a bunch of cool season stuff here. Still gonna plant a lot of cool season stuff here. It's just gonna be in those raised beds as opposed to in the ground. Now, I have let the chickens finish up on this plot, even though I don't know that that manure addition is going to be that helpful in these deeper raised beds. I just felt it was fair to let them finish their drill on this plot before we put them somewhere else. It's going to be a more permanent in-ground garden spot. I am going to have to mow this down, terminate those soybeans there. A few of them are coming back, but I don't think I'm going to need to till this. We'll probably end up just putting mulch between those raised beds. So now let's talk a little bit more about the actual raised beds that we'll be installing. There's a lot of different options out there as far as raised beds go. Obviously you can build them yourself out of wood. You can go to like Tractor Supply and get those tartar fire rings like we have over there beside the barn. And then there's also recently been a lot of companies online that are selling these galvanized metal raised bed kits, and those are pretty neat because you can arrange them in different sizes and configurations just depending on your layout. So obviously all of those are good valid options just depending on what you're wanting. I opted to go for longevity, so I wanted something made out of metal, and then Brooklyn wanted something that looked kind of nice sitting out here by the road, by the house. So we opted for those galvanized beds that can be arranged in different shapes and stuff. Now a couple other reasons I chose this particular type of bed. I like the fact that they were painted on the outside, just looked a little nicer. And also these can be moved pretty easily. And we're not planning on moving anytime soon, but if for some reason one day we do decide to move, I can take these with me. Now there's a few different companies online selling these galvanized raised bed kits. The company in particular that we're working with is called Ollie Gardens. I think that's how you say that. It's O-L-L-E. You can find them online at olliegardens.com. They did give us a coupon code for you guys if you want to try some of these out. It's just the word Lazy Dog Farm, one word there, will get you a 10% discount. And I think they're having some type of Labor Day sale as well last time I went to their website. So anyway, you can go to olliegardens.com and give them a look. And the reason we chose Ollie Gardens as compared to some of the other companies selling similar looking products online is just based on the simple fact that they answered my emails. So I got emails from several of these companies that make this type of product. Only one company would actually answer the emails and go back and forth with me and kind of discuss this venture. So since they were really nice and really easy to work with, that's who we chose. Now I'll show you my layout drawing in just a minute, but we're basically going to have these beds running this way. So from where I'm standing away from me in that direction, I think there's going to be 4 rows of beds, different shapes, sizes, that kind of thing. Now this plot is in direct sun with no obstructions. It doesn't ever get any shade. So we probably could have run the raised beds in any direction here, but I just think it'll look better having them run this way and then facing the road like that. Now I mentioned you can get these raised beds in several different colors, and if you go to their website you can see what I'm talking about. But I think they have 3 different colors. They have one that's kind of a white or an ivory color. They have a sage green, and then they have a darker one. It's not quite black, it's more of a kind of a charcoal color, dark gray, something like that. I knew I didn't want the white one because I just thought it would show up dirt and stuff really easily. I like the darker ones, the charcoal color ones, but then I got to worrying about those getting too hot. So we settled on the sage green ones. That's what color we picked for our plot here. Okay, so here's our layout. Hopefully everybody can see that. And just for reference sake, the road is down here. So there's another plot down here and then the road. So this is going to kind of be facing the road as we're looking at it here. So we got 4 different rows of raised beds, different shapes and sizes. With these particular raised beds, they make a tall and a shorter option. So in this back row here, we've got the taller ones. Can't remember exactly how tall they are, but they're taller than the rest of these we'll be putting in. They also have all these different configuration options. I think 12 different options for each bed. We're going with option 4 here, which is kind of like a big rectangle. On our second row, we're going to have basically the same shape as that's in this first row, just a shorter bed. So it'll kind of stagger tall to short here. In the third row, more of the shorter beds, but these will be kind of long, skinny shaped. And then down here, we've got the round beds. I think these have a 42-inch diameter, something like that. But we can squeeze 4 of those in this front row here. Now this isn't perfectly drawn to scale, but it's close enough to let me know how many beds I could fit in this plot and still have some room to move around. So I wanted to give myself close to 4 foot of walking or moving space between each bed, and that's what I've done here. I want to give myself room to run a wheelbarrow through there if I needed to, or plenty of room for me and the kids to walk around. So that's what we've done here. So we've got all those beds ordered in that sage green color. Like I told you, Ollie Gardens was nice enough to kind of prioritize our order so we can get this stuff here and hopefully get it put together, get it all set up by the time we need to be planting stuff in these beds. So I think they're supposed to be here somewhere between, or sometime between the 5th and 9th of September. And I think it takes a little time to put them together. Probably won't be able to put them together all in one day, but maybe I can just knock out a few every afternoon underneath the barn, get them all put together. Then we'll measure everything out, situate them in the right spots, get everything lined up, and then we'll start talking about, you know, filling them up and what we're going to put between the beds in the plot. So as far as what's going between the beds, we want to have some type of mulch. I'm probably not going to use pine straw just because there's going to be so much foot traffic between those beds. A lot of foot traffic on pine straw tends to break it down pretty quick. So going to go with wood chips or some type of mulch like that, something that can handle some heavy foot traffic. And then as far as what we're putting in the beds, I was going to ask you guys for some suggestions. I have a couple ideas, but I'd also like to hear what you guys put in your raised beds or in your container gardens. So I know a lot of people do the hugelkultur thing, and that basically just keeps them from having to buy so much soil. They just fill the bottom with sticks and logs and stuff that end up breaking down over time, and then just put soil in the top of the bed there where the roots are actually going to be, you know, growing in. Don't worry about the deep bottom where the roots are never going to touch, and that's a good way to kind of conserve money on soil. Now I think I have a good source for soil to fill the beds, so I'm not going to have to do the hugelkultur thing. Got a buddy whose dad has a logging business, and he told me that down the road about 10 or 15 minutes away they've got a big pile of composted wood chips that have been composted a long time that are really nice and broken down. So I'm thinking I was going to use that to fill most of the beds, and then as we get closer to the top, use maybe something like some Jungle Grow or some store-bought potty mix just to have in the top there. And then over time, as we get some of our own compost made here, as we get some of our own worm castings made, we can add our own amendments to the top there to really improve the fertility there. And I know most of y'all are just using what you have as far as what you fill containers or raised beds in. But anyway, let me know in the comments below what you've used to fill yours. What's your special recipe? If you got any tips on use this because it's going to hold moisture better, or don't use this because it's going to drain too much. You're going to be out there having to water all the time. And then as far as watering goes, I mentioned this a couple videos ago. I don't think I'm going to set up a drip system on all these raised beds initially, and one reason for that would just be time. I don't think I'm going to have time to really design something that's going to work really well. The second thing is, with fall, winter veggies, we don't worry about leaf moisture causing a lot of diseases and stuff with things like carrots or lettuce or greens or anything like that. Now, as we go into the spring, if we're putting tomatoes or peppers or squash or something like that in those raised beds, we definitely want to reduce leaf moisture, and we may end up installing a drip system then. But for the fall, the cool season veggies, I think we can get away with just putting a central overhead sprinkler in the middle and just watering all the raised beds at one time. So I hope you all are as excited about this project as I am. I can't wait to see it all come together, and we'll be sure to film the entire process, every step along the way as it does come together, hopefully by the end of September, because that's when we're going to be needing to put some stuff in the ground. Speaking of putting some stuff in the ground, we need to go to the greenhouse, check on how everything is doing, and plant some more stuff. Now, for most of this stuff in the greenhouse here, we're aiming for an in-ground date of late September, early October. Also, for most of this stuff, like this broccoli and cauliflower here, it's going to take about 6 weeks to go from seed to viable transplant. So 6 weeks from the time we put a seed in this tray until we're ready to go in the ground with a nice looking transplant. And so that's why we planted all this stuff in mid-August. We planted mid-August. 6 weeks from then puts us at the end of September, early October, and hopefully we can get this stuff in the ground by then. I think this year we're gonna have a little bit of a fall. We don't always get a fall, but I think this year we're gonna have a little bit of cooling earlier in September than normal and be able to get this stuff in the ground. So I want to have it ready to go in the ground as soon as it's cool enough outside to do so. So all your things like broccoli, cauliflower, collards, kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, all those things you can figure about 6 weeks from seed to viable transplant. But there are some other cool season things we grow that don't take that long to form a viable transplant. They're a little faster growing than some of that other stuff. And that would include things like our Savannah Mustard here, pak choi, and lettuce. So you don't always have to be in as big of a hurry to plant your lettuce because one, it doesn't take as long to form a viable transplant. This stuff usually grows really fast. And two, you got to be real careful with lettuce. If the soil's too warm, sometimes this stuff won't germinate. Now, some varieties are a lot more finicky than others. These particular 3 varieties I have here today, from my experiences planting them last fall and this spring, don't seem to be too finicky, but I have ran across some pretty finicky varieties over the years where if that soil is the least bit warm, you're not getting anything to germinate. You got to wait till things cool off a little bit. These should germinate just fine as it is right now, but something to keep in mind as you're starting lettuce in seed trays or maybe just direct seeding it in the ground. Now these other 2 things that I showed you earlier, the pak choi and the Savannah mustard, grow ridiculously fast. You can direct seed these and you can have food sometimes in 30, 35, at least 40 days, sometimes as soon as 30 days. So if you want to direct seed these, go for it. We're going to transplant them. With the pak choi here, you can plant that real thick and then do it like a cut and come again green. Just cut the baby leaves and just keep cutting it and cutting it. What we'll do is actually transplant it out about 8 to 12 inches apart and wait and cut the full size heads of it. But we really like this stuff because it's tender, grows really fast, it's really good to eat. You can stir fry it or you can just cook it up like you do a big old pot of collards. And then the Savannah mustard is a tried and true favorite of ours. We grow it every single year. Just like the pak choi, you can plant this, you can direct seed it on a real thick bed, cut the baby greens, just keep cutting it and keep cutting it. I've done that before. What we'll do is grow it out from transplants, then plant those about, say, 4 to 6 inches apart. So we'll still have it planted really, really thick. But one reason I like this stuff, besides it being so fast growing and so good tasting, is that it has an upright growth habit. So it doesn't get near as dirty as some of the other mustard green varieties out there. The leaves tend to stay upright. If you get a heavy rain, it's not going to splash a lot of soil on the leaves because the leaves are upright. They're not laying down near the ground. So your process and your cleaning time is a lot less with this variety here. And I don't know that I've ever heard anybody try Savannah mustard that said they didn't like it. So if you've never tried it and you're a fan of eating greens, you need to give it a try at least once. Alright, so I got me a tray ready here. Already got it moistened. Already got some dibbles made there. Already got our plant markers in there. I'm going to have to move those around a little bit. We're going to put all this stuff in one tray here because I think that's going to be plenty for us. We're going to be planting all this in our new raised beds that I was telling you about. So we got our 3 varieties of lettuce there, our Adriana Butterhead, Tropicana leaf lettuce, Sparks romaine, and then plenty of pak choi and Savannah mustard. I might need to give a little bit of that away, so I'm growing a little extra of that. But as far as the lettuce goes, that bit right there should be plenty for a raised bed and grow out a lot of good groceries just from this one tray here. So we'll start off with our lettuce here, and as always we like using pelleted lettuce seed. A lot easier to singulate in these cells. The only caveat, as I've told you before, we're using pelleted lettuce seed, is that you got to give it some overhead water, wash that clay, which is what the pellet's made out of. Wash that clay off that seed so it can then germinate. But as long as you give it plenty of top water, you shouldn't have any issues. Alright, and that's all of our lettuce there. Now we'll move on to our greens. Alright, so we got all that stuff planted there, staying on schedule as far as our fall seed starting goes. The next thing on the list would be mid-September, getting our short day onions started here in the greenhouse. So today is September 1st. It'll be later than that by the time this video airs. But today's September 1st, so in about 13-14 days, we'll be starting our onions in here. I get really excited about growing onions, and just can't wait. If any of you guys out there, as far as the onions go, ever found any of that Macon onion variety or that sweet azalea short day onion variety, let me know. I'm still on the hunt for some, and I'll let you know if I find any, but you let me know if you find any as well. And by the coolness in the air and the sound of the thunder in the distance, I think we're about to get us a good little storm here. So we need to go ahead and wrap it up. But let me know what you think about our raised bed plan. Tell me what you think works good as far as putting down between the beds, and also what you use to fill beds if you use containers or raised beds as a part of your garden. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to check out our affiliate links below. A lot of great companies that we use in our gardens here at Lazy Dog Farm. Even got some coupon codes for some of those companies so you can take advantage of those discounts. Don't forget to go check out our website, lazydogfarm.com, where we've got recipes, our garden blog, recommended products, hats, shirts, all kind of good stuff over there. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification button, like, and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Oh, farewell, by the beauty of your life.